Mr. Gurria, thank you so much for being with Bloomberg TV tonight. The ECOFIN is in a couple days. What's the most urgent step that needs to be taken for Greece?
Clearly, having decided to disburse some resources to keep the short term going, the whole question is about the private sector involvement. How do you bring in the private sector? How do you make them share so that the outcome can be better? How do you get time so that the policies of Greece can actually work? Time so that you avoid that a liquidity problem becomes a solvency problem, and also time so that eventually, if there needs to be a reduction in the nominal size of the debt in a few years' time when we know better, then there can be. But for all those reasons, we need time, and it's the private creditors that can supply the time. And in the meantime, you do something else. You stop the transfer of the pockets of the taxpayers of Europe through Greece in order to pay the private sector creditors. And you use the money of the taxpayers of Europe in order to support Greece in its recovery, not just to pay its creditors.
How much of a haircut would be reasonable, and aren't you afraid of a global financial meltdown in this case?
It's precisely what I just said. We don't know how much, if at all, or how much. We need time. Among other things, time for the policies to gel, to work, to function, and also for the world economic recovery to consolidate, which will also help Greece, for more tourism to come back, etc. So in 5-6 years' time, we may have a better idea, and also the banks may be better prepared to share in any nominal reduction of the debt. Today, it's too early. Today, what we need is just maturities to be extended forward, no event of default, everybody to participate.
So avoiding default is still possible?
Oh yes, avoiding default is still possible, of course. In fact, I'm absolutely convinced that there will not be a default. I think what there will be is, once we agree on this in the next few days, in the next few weeks, a concerted extension with the creditors agreeing to it. I see it's the only way out, but no, I don't think there will be a default.
But according to some rating agencies, the French rollover plan created some selective default. So do you think that proposal can still work?
No, I don't. I'm not talking about the French proposal. I'm not talking about anybody's proposal. So far, we have not yet had a single proposal that actually works in terms of satisfying the ECB, satisfying the regulators, satisfying Greece, of course, and the IMF and the EU. But I think it is possible. All the elements are on the table. We can put it together, and clearly we have to stop the cacophony. We have to stop, all these opinions about, what has to be done, what cannot be done, because that is creating enormous distrust, enormous lack of confidence. It is possible. Normally in Europe, things take a little bit of time. Sometimes they're a little noisy, but eventually we get it together. And I say we because, I live in Paris, so I feel part of the responsibility.
So none of the proposals currently on the tables would work, in your opinion?
Well, what you alluded to is to one of them, which is the French one. And of course, the first thing that the rating agency said, it would precipitate an event of default. So everybody says, okay, back to the drawing board, right? Yeah, but it's going to happen maybe, once or twice again. But we have some time. I understand that with the latest disbursements, there's a little bit of time, maybe August, September. So we don't have to rush. We just have to get it right.
What about the experience of Mexico? Could you share with us the experience of Mexico and how it relates to the current crisis?
The experience of Mexico is precisely the fact that in the beginning, we all bought time. There were extensions of the maturities first of the first year, and then the second, then we picked it all up and we took it. And then in the end, there was a conclusion after the policies had been put in place, and there was a consensus about how much had to be taken off, but also, and this is very, very important, about the fact that it was best for all, including the creditors. So there was an orderly process, but that again takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, and we're trying to telescope the process. We should not, this is too important to be urgent.
Do you think the ECB has done too much and the European leaders too little in resolving this crisis?
Everybody plays a role here, and everybody has been playing their role, their respective roles. The only question is they have not added up to a convergent solution. But now, especially after the rating agencies came down with this Portuguese rating, etc., now they're all focusing on the fact that it is the Europeans, it's the leaders, what matters are the Greeks and the Portuguese, not the rating agencies. And that everybody should converge around a solution that will be the best for the countries and for Europe, not simply to satisfy either the rating agencies or the creditors.
Will Portugal need a second bailout?
We are still working on the first one, so frankly, I think it's too early to say. I think the case of Portugal always was a marginal case in terms of whether they came or did not come. In the end, it was the politics that drove them to the EU and to the IMF, whereas in the case of Greece and Ireland, the case was more dire because it was a very serious fiscal problem, and the other one was a very, very serious banking and regulatory failure.
That seemed to be, Portugal obviously made the idea of a contagion come back. And then last week we had Italy kind of had a bad end of the week. What could be the next casualty? Could Italy or Spain be a next casualty?
Frankly, you cannot dictate policy and you cannot design policy and you cannot execute policy based on the spreads of the day or the exchange rate of the day or the behavior of stock market of the day. Because then you will be chasing your tail all the time and you will be chasing the market rather than leading the market. Here the idea is to have a very clear idea what you want to do and then the market will follow, okay? And that's a medium and long-term vision, not responding to the day's exchange rates or the stock market indicators.